Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So I know lately we've had a lot of serious videos or political videos because of how crazy the world is right now, but today we're going to get back to a fun, probably interesting video that I think you guys are gonna like. And that is gonna be talking about which special operations unit is the most effective. Now, of course, we need to sort of define what we mean by effective. All right, so what is the purpose of special operations? And that is to carry out strategic level objectives on behalf of the United States government. So that's the lens that we're looking at this through. So that doesn't mean necessarily who's the best at direct action point target raids, or who's the best at unconventional warfare, or who's the best at military free fall or amphibious assaults, right? Holistically, which unit produces the most and effective results. All right, so with all these videos, people always get upset where these units get ranked. All right, this is my biased opinion, but I'm not really sure I'd call it biased. I think it's kind of just objective reality. All right, if you get offended by this video, it's probably because you watch too many Hollywood movies. All right, so let's jump right into it and start racking and stacking where these units fall. Now, keep in mind, of course, everybody always says, well, what about this unit? Yeah, there's 20 plus special operations units in the US military. These videos can't be 6 hours long, okay? So we pick and choose different ones for each video. It is what it is, all right? So let's jump right into it. The ones we always start with in these videos is, of course, civil affairs and PSYOPs, all right? We're gonna go ahead and rank PSYOPs on the absolute bottom of effectiveness, just like every other video, no matter what we do. Why? Well, we made an entire movie, Hollywood movie, about how bad they actually are at doing the job, which is this movie. All right, now from what I've seen personally, you know, America is actually probably the best at psychological operations using propaganda, but it's usually against its own people. A lot of people don't even realize that. They think Russia and North Korea is so great at propaganda, now we're the best. However, PSYOPs as a unit, I haven't really seen a whole lot out of them. What you know, their counterparts are who, you know, we fought against in the Middle East, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda. You're seeing it with Hamas. Great at PSYOPs. What do? Anytime we hit a target, we kill a bunch of their combatants. They roll through the next morning. They strip off all their body armor, all their guns, everything, take pictures, put it on Al Jazeera and say, look at all the civilians Americans killed. Okay, that's their standard bread and butter go-to, all right? If you didn't realize they do that, that's what they do, okay? Get upset about it, said it or not, don't care. All right, civil affairs. Now, if, you know, the point of civil affairs was to be extremely effective at going to embassy parties, these dudes would absolutely crush it. But other than that, not really sure what they actually even do. All right, moving on to real special operations units. So coming at near the bottom, and this one is of course gonna make everybody hurt and their feelings hurt. That is gonna be, and I'm gonna put them together because everybody always gets mad that I don't include it, and that is gonna be Navy SEALs and Special Warfare Combat Crewmen. Okay, why are these guys at the absolute bottom of effectiveness? Honestly, we're talking about success in carrying out strategic level objectives. Well, they have the most major failures and F-ups of any soft units, okay? No, believe me, let's talk about them. Operation Red Wings, one of the biggest failed missions, I think, in recent modern history. You guys can go deep dive that whole debacle on your own if you want. You've got Task Force Bruiser. Obviously, that is another one that's kind of been in the limelight lately of huge F-ups. You got the Battle of Takur Gar, with Chapman being left behind. The death of Logan Melgar, the Navy SEALs who murdered a Green Beret and tried to cover it up. And then you have all the, you know, recent, and I don't really subscribe to this one, but it is what it is, sort of accusations of war crimes against famous Navy SEALs in Iraq, right? Overall, not good. Effectiveness, not a whole lot being done there, all right? So, what are these two supposed to be really good at? Amphibious water-based operations. Well, you know, in all my time in the Middle East and the global war on terror, on a combat dive team myself, I didn't see a whole lot of water, and we didn't amphibiously assault anything. So, not a whole lot being effective there. Yes, they've done some stuff in Africa and Somalia with the pirates. Okay, but as a whole, holistically against the rest of the special operations units, I'm sorry guys, that's just As for effectiveness, they're at the bottom. Tactically, also at the bottom. People get really shocked to hear this. You know, Hollywood has really helped this case about, you know, the SEALs being some amazing tactical force. Comparatively, they're not. And and I want to break this down for people who don't understand this, okay? You should not expect that Navy SEALs are the best tactically. And in fact, you should expect they're the worst if you compare them against all the other special operations tactically. Why? Well, the Navy, it does not have a ground fighting force, naturally. They have no infantry, right? Every other special operations unit, Ranger Battalion, Green Berets, MarSOC Raiders, Delta Force, pull from the infantry, Cav Scouts, all these tons of experience over time in ground combat, and that's where we build our fighting forces for. So of course, those units are going to be better at that, okay? Sorry if that makes you upset. Again, Hollywood has done a great job sort of switching that. If this video was about who's the most effective Hollywood movie fighting force, these guys would absolutely crush it. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the next one, and that is going to be, I think, going to be surprising to people to hear, because I actually hold them in such high regard, and that's going to be our Air Force PJs, Pararescue. Why are they so low at effectiveness? Well, let's talk about their own nicknames that they've named themselves in their acronyms, okay? So Air Force CSAR, which the nickname they say stands for Come Sit and Relax. Another saying is all that training just to never leave the wire, okay? It's kind of the reality, guys. They're extremely limited in scope of what they do. Now, they're amazing at it, right? But, you know, going in, helping and rescuing injured soldiers, all super important. In what we're looking at and carrying out strategic level objectives, obviously very, very low on the list when it comes to that. All right, so moving on. Now we're getting into kind of the mid-range of pretty effective, but not all the way at the top, okay? And that's gonna be our MarSOC Raiders, right? The biggest thing for MarSOC and why they're not higher is, honestly, they're just the newest special operations unit, okay? They were started during the Global War on Terror. And like I've said in other videos, they're still trying to sort of figure out what their niche is gonna be, okay? So if you look at from their directorate, what their actual roles are: direct action, SR, special reconnaissance, FID, foreign internal defense, counterterrorism, and counterinsurgency. Those are literally just copied, like copy-paste from the Green Berets mission sets, okay? So they're kind of trying to figure out how they want to differentiate themselves from SF. They're still figuring it out, but that doesn't mean that they're not necessarily effective at the job. They're actually one of the most tactically trained and proficient units. I think their Q course is actually designed that way. So effective on the ground and in combat, yes, very effective at that, but carrying out strategic level objectives on mass scale, kind of middle of the pack on that so far. All right, next, now we're getting sort of near the top, and there's going to be a lot of these that sort of are right next to each other as we move up towards most effective, and we're going to talk about why each one kind of is a little bit below the rest. All right, so the next one is going to be ISA or TFO, Task Force Orange, and this is Army Soft's sort of premier intelligence unit. The way I like to describe this is, like, think about the military's version of the CIA. Their whole job is to gather intelligence, drive human intelligence sources, things like that. So why is that so important for being effective? Well, while they aren't really carrying out the actual missions, it's super important for the effectiveness of all the other special operations units, right? So that intelligence that we get, even as Green Berets or Ranger Battalion, Delta Force, is critical at actually driving operations on the ground, okay? So for effectiveness, very, very high, but also they're limited in the scope of what they're doing. Smaller, sort of niche type of unit in their scope. I've worked with them before. I can't talk about what we did because I was right onto it, but very, very impressed by these guys and what they do, okay? So up near the top, right? Now, next, and I think a lot of people are going to be surprised that this one isn't number one. I see this one sort of listed number one a lot of time, and a lot of people do this type of thing. And that is going to be our Air Force Combat Controllers. All right, let's talk about why they're always rated so high in effectiveness, and then I'm going to talk about why I didn't put them at the top. So, first of all, air power, close air support is absolute king in combat. If you have air superiority, you are most likely going to win the battle. Okay, that's just the reality of how it works. And what is now, CCTs do a bunch of different things, but what is one of their primary roles, especially in the global war on terror? We had them attached to our teams all the time, and that is to be JTACs, call in airstrikes in defense of friendly troops. Super important. Now, and they're probably responsible for the highest enemy killed in action numbers, probably by a significant margin over the entire global war on terror. So as a fighting force, or sort of an enabler to a fighting force, extremely effective, right? The problem is, and guys, they're attached to all sorts of different units. The problem is, and why I'm not going to rank them near the top, is because as a standalone unit, right, they rely on other units for them to go out and do their thing. And not only that, but if there was no Air Force CCTs, we'd still be able to do the job. Why? Because Green Berets have JTACs. I myself was one. Ranger Battalion, all the Navy SEALs, all the other units have JTACs and can fulfill the role of CCTs on an ODA by themselves. Okay, so that's why these guys cannot be at the absolute top, right? Because if you got rid of them, you could still carry out the mission. But they are incredible at it. No knock on me, they didn't let me drop bombs. We always made sure my our CCTs were the one that were handling the real work when it came to that, right? So next, and we're still moving up the ladder, still got a few more to go, but highly effective, getting near the top, is going to be Ranger Battalion. Okay, so I don't think this one should shock a whole lot of people, right? Even though you know, they rank a little bit lower in other things, like how hard their Q course is and things like that. From effectiveness, they're actually extremely effective fighting force, right? They actually have the highest kill capture rate for high value targets of any special operations unit throughout the entire global war on terror. And they can act as sort of a sizable infantry size level force on their own, which really none of this other special operation units can do, other than Green Berets. We'll talk about that. But they have extremely high rate of success on their missions, and they do actually get quite a few high profile missions. So I would say, if we looked at who's the most lethal fighting force on a large scale in special operations, it would be Ranger Battalion. Okay, so that's why they're going to be rated very high near the top, but not quite at number one, right? So we're getting close. We got 3 more, all right? These next 2 we're going to do together because the scope of what they do is so similar. And, you know, onesie twosies, who's better at it, you know, there's arguments both ways, but they're both absolute incredible units, and that's why they're going to be sort of tied at the second most effective soft unit, and that's going to be, of course, Delta Force and DevG. Okay, why? Well, they carry out the most strategic, important missions in the United States, right? When you need to assassinate Osama bin Laden, when you need to rescue hostages, when you need to do these critical tasks, these are the units that we send. Okay, we don't send Green Berets, we don't send Rangers for things of this level strategic important. When we need to go somewhere we're not allowed to go to get something done, excuse me, these are the guys that we're going to send. All right, now everybody knows, you know, if you watch soft content, how, you know, storied and amazing Delta and DevG are. Okay, they're the top of the top. Everybody in soft that has aspirations of being at the top wants to be there. Okay, tactically, the 2 best units in the world. Okay, direct action, 2 best units in the world. CQB, 2 best units in the world. However, this video is on overall effectiveness of carrying out strategic level operations. Now, as you can see, they do that, but I want you to think about it as these 2 units are kind of the soft or military's scalpel, fine tool to hit point target objectives and then leave. Okay, so I can't put them all the way at the top because there's of course a unit that does this on a massive large scale more than anyone else, and that is going to be, of course, the U.S. Army Green Berets, all right? Now, everybody's gonna say, oh, you only put Green Berets first because you are one. So, if you want, you can go back and watch the last 10 ranking videos I've done on all sorts of different topics. And I have never once put Army Special Forces in the #1 slot. But in this case, I'm going to, because objectively, it is true. And I'm gonna walk you through all the reasons why, okay? Effectiveness, carrying out strategic level operations for the United States government. Well, the biggest thing is, we're everywhere at all times, okay? Green Berets and ODAs are actively deployed in almost 100 countries at all times. Anything happens anywhere in the world, Special Forces is most likely going to be the first unit there on scene. Even if it's earthquakes in Haiti and all these different places, Green Berets are going to be there first because we're just embedded everywhere. So for effectiveness, being everywhere all the time is highly effective for the United States government. All right. Also, we have by far the widest capabilities and mission set. So if you look at our mission set, let's go down the line so I don't miss any. All right. Unconventional warfare, that's our bread and butter. We're better than everybody at it, no doubt. Foreign internal defense, direct action, special reconnaissance, counterterrorism, counterinsurgency, military intel operations, counter-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and humanitarian assistance, right? We do everything. So while Delta Force and DevG are the scalpel, we're sort of the entire toolbox, okay? Now, we also do every infill platform, okay? So we do military freefall halo, we do combat dive, amphibious assaults, mountaineering, mobility, ruck, all these different ways of actually getting to the target. So we can effectively get anywhere we need to go to, okay? Also, we get there at the fastest rate of time. So for those of you who don't know, there's a story after the Twin Towers fell. George Bush basically sat in front of all his generals and said, you know, I want to be in Afghanistan as soon as possible. Who can get me there? All the conventional units were like, we need 18 months to be able to get all our vehicles and everything across the sea and all this. Went down the line. Soft 2-star raised his hand, or Special Forces 2-star raised his hand, said I can be there in 30 days. Boom, you got the job. That is how Green Berets were chosen to basically go start the war and hunt down Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan, right? Now, let's talk about tactically why SF is so effective and probably the most effective, okay? Now, maybe not at point target scalpel direct action raids, okay? But as a whole, in a fighting force in an entire combat zone, why are we so effective? Well, because we work by, with, and through a host nation's army. What does that mean? 12 US soldiers can go fight in combat and be as effective as a 100-person infantry force, 200-person. How do we do that? Well, 12 guys, and this is what I used to do, take out 60 to 80 Afghans, Syrians, Iraqis, Ukrainians, whatever, and lead them in combat. Why is that so effective? Because the host nation army goes and dies for their own country instead of young US soldiers. There is nothing, I'm sorry, you can argue with it if you want, in my opinion, there's nothing more effective and efficient than 12 dudes being able to take the fight to someone else using the host nation's army and not having a bunch of US soldiers die in the process, okay? Now, you might say, oh, that's not true. Look at Afghanistan. 2 ODAs, 24 Green Berets. You can go read books, Lions of Kandahar, and all sorts of different books on this. The story's out there, we all know it. 24 Green Berets toppled Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan for the most part, okay? So yes, from effective standpoint, that is one of the most effective things in military history, okay? So, now, obviously, we decided to nation build after that and completely botched that entire thing, but that initial push into Afghanistan, one of the most effective military operations ever. All right, the other thing is, we talked about a bunch of stuff different teams can do. Well, why are we so effective? Because we can do everything everybody else can do, okay? So, we can do direct action, okay? Well, the SEALs can do water. Yeah, well, Green Berets have combat dive teams. And not only that, but a U.S. Special Forces combat dive team actually won Best dive team at the competition this year. So take it what you want. We drive our own intel if we need to, okay? We can drop our own bombs with JTACs if we need to, all right? We can do any and everything. Also, extremely high rate of success, okay? Not a lot of massive failures when it comes to, and again, we do way more than everybody else when you talk about volume around the world. Very low rate of failure, okay? Now, last reason why Green Berets are so effective, and that is because, again, we talked about being in all these different countries, we train other nations to make them more effective at fighting our enemies for us, okay? From a strategic level standpoint, okay, strategic's up above operational and tactical. From a strategic standpoint, all over the world, that's the most effective thing the United States government has in its entire toolkit, is the ability for Green Berets to go train, advise, equipped, and make other nations that we're allied with better at fighting our enemies for us. That is true effectiveness. So, now, again, you guys, if you're offended by any of this, I'm sure you'll let me know in the comment section. Again, my biased opinions, but look, it's a lot of good information, I think, for you guys, and you can take it what you will, and let me know if you think things should be racked and stacked differently. And guys, spare me the comments of what about this unit, okay? If you say that in the comment section, it's just going to tell me that you didn't watch to the end of the video. All right, so look, it's different units in every video, okay? All right, so that's gonna wrap that up. I hope you guys found this one interesting, a little bit more fun and lighthearted, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.